Okay, right. Okay, so it's the first podcast. We've known each other for a long time now, Emma. We've talked about doing a podcast for a long time. So as you know, this weekend I'm taking imperfect action. So thought this would be a good opportunity to get you on and talk about what it is that you do that fits in with the whole wellness, physical and mental, for this podcast, really, because this podcast is going to be Journey Happy, and it's all about health, wealth, and happiness. So, so the first of hopefully many, but it's going to be a bit odd because we know each other pretty well. So, I think the first thing we'll do is if you just introduce yourself and let everybody know what it is that you do.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, as you said, we've known each other for quite a long time through the running club and through doing running coaching together. But I'm also a therapist. So I trained as a therapist I graduated from my course when I was very pregnant with my son. So that dates it. So 7 years. I didn't practice for quite a long time, but then my goal was to incorporate the mental health benefits of running with the therapy. So in the last couple of years, I've set up my own practice as a therapist, but all of my sessions are outdoors. So they're all walking or running. So you can look that up as Oxford Wellness Running. So that's the wellness aspect of it. And yeah, it's just, honestly, it's one of these things where, I've been talking about doing this for years, and my experience as a therapist was always that one-to-one in a room, quite formal. Some people actually find that intimidating, and it can be quite a barrier to people who potentially need help for their mental health, or just has had something happen to them that they really could do with working through with somebody. But the kind of idea of sitting in a room with a therapist is quite intimidating. But as you know well, like, some of the best conversations you have with people are out on a long run or a walk. And that's kind of where the idea came from, really, to have my sessions outdoors. And it's one of those things where it's crazy how well it works. It's just, I came away from one of my sessions just thinking, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This just works really well.
Yeah.
And it's, there are certain, obviously it's not for everybody at all, and you do have to be prepared to be outside in all kinds of weather. And I've had, the downside of it is that, I had the first client fall over a tree stump this week, okay. Tree root this week, which was, in COVID times, my instinct was just to reach out and help her up. And obviously I can't, I have to stay 2 meters away. So there are disadvantages to being outdoors, but it's just generally, I think it works really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we do.
So how's that kind of journey kind of happened? Have you always been into running, or
No.
Journey really into running?
With running, I was one of those. I was the kid at school who point blank refused to do cross country and would hide under a bridge smoking. So no, I haven't always loved running. I got into running. So I've got 2 kids. My daughter is 10 and my son is 6. And when just after Evie was born, I think she was about 18 months old. So yeah, that's that 8.5 years ago. I felt, mentally and physically not well at all, actually, looking back on it. It's one of those things where you don't realise it at the time, but I was really overweight, I was really miserable, and I happened to be at a baby group in Botley and picked up a flyer for a ladies only running group, which happened to meet, I was studying at the time for my therapy postgraduate. And I happened to have Wednesday mornings off, and that's when this group met, the Garden Cafe runners. And I went along to the first session just thinking I have to do something about my physical and mental health.
Right.
And, you know, that first session running around Christchurch Meadow, which is, you know, where I held some of my sessions. So it's really kind of, you know, it's quite a special place to me now. Running around with maternity joggers on that I was holding up with one hand, doing 1 minute, 15-year-old trainers, Judge Dredd t-shirt with holes in it. You know, the opposite of all the gear, no idea, but not all the gear either. And yeah, that was it really. I just kind of, basically went through a Couch to 5K program with them.
Right.
So the two leaders of that group, both called Sarah, who are incredibly inspirational women to me. And just that first session, 1 minute on, 1 minute off. And just, you know, I think sometimes people think they can't get into running because they can't immediately go out and run 5K. You know, we expect to be able to do that. But I think the Couch to 5K movement has been incredible because it teaches you that you can't just go out and run for a whole mile without building up to it. So
yeah. I guess at this, where we are at the moment in the COVID situation, obviously running has been one of those things that we've been able to kind of continue doing, maybe in the format that we've been used to. Obviously, events have all been cancelled. But there's a huge popularity in that you go out and run and follow the things like the Couch to 5K. Yeah,
and I don't know about you, like, I mean, I'm kind of guessing you feel the same way about it, but for me, it's been an absolute lifesaver. You know, through the first lockdown, I decided to run every day for 100 days because, you know, all the fundraising, I've been fundraising for CALM, the suicide prevention charity, but all the events that I was going to do Manchester Marathon and try and get a PB and all of that cancelled. So I decided to run for 100 days. And I'm not a run every day advocate at all. Like, I think some people it suits them really well, but, you know, I need rest days. But just that in the first lockdown, that sort of commitment I made to myself to get out every day, I think it was an absolute lifesaver because, you know, that's part of the principle of what I do with the therapy. Is part of the therapy is just being outside in nature. For that, you know, for some of my clients, you know, that might be the only time that they actually kind of get out and see. You know, like this morning I was with a client and we were in the middle of something quite heavy. I went, oh, kingfisher. You know, and just actually the delight in seeing that kingfisher, and it sort of, you know, it lightened the moment, but then we got back to what we were talking about, so it didn't distract too much. But just, I think just being outside and, you know, I do, you know, I get a lot of my clients, it's walking rather than running, but and I still, you know, I think you get the same benefits from walking. Yeah. But I think part of what helps our mental health is actually just being outside for a bit amount of time a day. And, you know, I'm pretty sure you feel the same way about it, but sometimes when it was homeschooling, when the schools were shut, I needed that half an hour or an hour away from my kids every day. Just, there's something about running that I think for me, I don't know whether this chimes with other people, but I never feel guilty about taking that time for myself to go for a run.
No.
Like, I might not want to do it. It might be horrible out there and I don't want to put my trainers on. I don't want to run. But if I make myself do it, I never feel guilty about having that time away from my kids or from work. I never feel like I should be doing something else, which is quite unusual, I think, in the modern age, isn't it?
It is, and I think there's a tendency to feel guilty about looking after ourselves.
Yeah.
But certainly in this situation, I think if you're not taking care of yourself, then you're not going to be able to look after the other people in your life the way that you want to. And it's funny because, you know, there's that meme that says nobody's ever regretted a run. You know, you kind of do doubt that you want to go for the run at the beginning. Once you're out, you come back and, you know, you've got that run. It is huge. Yeah, it's a huge, and it has been for me as well. You know, when the first lockdown, had the kids at home trying to work, my running just went off a cliff really. And I know when I've not been out for a run for a few days, because I just react to things differently. You know, I've not got the energy, the concentration, probably short on temper, and, you know, in a situation which is there's a lot of anxiety around. Yeah. So absolutely.
There was a piece published. Sorry.
Yeah, going out for that run has just been able.
There was a piece published recently saying that if you take an hour's exercise, I can't remember what the percentage was, I never remember numbers of anything, but you were some, quite impressive percentage more productive afterwards, that you basically function better after exercise.
Yeah.
And I think, it's all of those aspects. I think all of those aspects are what is good for your mental health, because you've got the aspect of actually taking a bit of time for yourself, and it is a self-care thing. And, I can't say it without using cheesy cliches, but, the whole thing about you can't pour from an empty cup, and you need to kind of rejuvenate. And, I found, there's some aspects of the first lockdown when the kids were at home, which there were some aspects of it that were really, I look back on, I think that was wonderful, because I got to know my kids in a way that I don't think I would. You don't, when they're at school or at nursery or whatever, you don't kind of spend that amount of time with them. But there were other aspects of spending that much time with my kids that were not good. And not good for anybody, and the frayed tempers and the guilt that they were watching too much TV and all of this stuff, and that they weren't getting educated properly because I'm not a teacher and I don't have the patience. But I think, sorry, I've gone off on a complete tangent. I think all of those aspects about getting out for a run, it's the exercise, it's the being outdoors, and it's taking something for yourself, and then afterwards you've got the endorphins. So,
Yeah, it's funny because obviously we've talked a lot about the therapy side of things that you do, and the outdoor side of things.
Yeah.
Which that I actually also do some walk and talk sessions with my my financial clients.
Yeah.
So there's something about, like I say, being outside, walking, and having those conversations. It just seems to really help the conversation along.
Yeah, it does.
Or therapy. Yeah.
I think there's kind of, I think one of the reasons for that, one of my clients once, this was quite a long time ago, one of my first clients that I had that I used to see outdoors, to them it was part of the fact, one of the reasons that they much preferred walking rather than kind of, because I think it's the same thing with your financial clients, kind of sitting in a room sort of eyeballing somebody can be quite uncomfortable. So one of the things that they liked, that they said to me, was that it was less intimidating, because you're literally walking alongside with someone. You're sort of, the journey part of your journey happy fit, you're making that journey with that person. But also I think some people really struggle with prolonged eye contact. It can be quite uncomfortable. So if you're walking alongside somebody, someone else said to me, it's similar to that thing that a friend said this to me, that they always have their best conversations and really get things out when you're sitting next to somebody in the car, because it's the same thing. You're not having to kind of stare at them and, but yeah, I think it does. And I think also, I'm reading this book that I would recommend to anybody at the moment. It's the Natural Health Service.
Right.
A bit here.
Okay.
How I get obsessed with books when I'm reading. But it's the Natural Health Service by Isabel Hardman, and everything in that, and just kind of every bit of it that I really think, God, that really chimes. That's really true. And it's, so it's just about the mental health benefits of being outside. Whether that's, she's a runner as well, and a lot of it's about running, but also cycling, or even, because I think actually we need to kind of acknowledge the privilege that we are able to run as well, that we're able to run and walk, and not everybody can. And some of it is some of the book is about bird watching, or even kind of just the benefits of nature and being out in nature. And I think that links to what we were just talking about, in that there's also something about there's something in this book, and there's something that has really struck a chord with me, is that it's actually quite helpful to have distractions from, do you know what I mean? Like if you're looking around at the trees and sorry, that's a bit of a cliche, but all kind of just spotting, deer or squirrels or whatever, it kind of takes the pressure off that you're just thinking about, I don't know, in your case, someone's financial situation. It takes away that intimidation of you're 100% focused on that. And in my case, somebody kind of trying to talk about some very difficult aspect of their mental health, or something traumatic that's happened in their past. There's something about just being outside that makes that somehow easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, totally. So when you're doing your therapy sessions,
Yeah.
so what would be involved in that if somebody was to be out, the whole outside element and the conversation piece? How does it kind of work?
Well, the conversation, I suppose, I was going to say it's the things we talk about are no different they would be to what they would be if I was, I did my training working in an NHS counselling centre, and I was going to say that the structure is no different, but actually I don't think that's true. I think it has to be different, because if you're in a normal counselling or therapy session and you're in a room, you've got the boundaries of the room, if you see what I mean. You don't have to manage time in the same way. So I have like things that I had to think about before I started this were things like making sure that the session is the right amount of time. So, what they call a therapeutic hour is 50 minutes, so that you can have 10 minutes before the next client to kind of, get your head back in, away from thinking about one client to thinking about another. So that I had to make sure that the routes that I walk on are 50 minutes, and with one client, that's 2 laps of a park. And with another client who walks really fast, like faster, I'm practically trotting to keep up with them, that's 3 laps, So I have to be quite aware of, and it's quite easy to mess up that time boundary, because you can end up starting another loop and thinking, oh, blimey, I've got to be back in 5 minutes. So,
Yeah.
It is different, but, and I think it's different as well, because when you're sitting in a room with somebody, it's literally just you and them and your 2 brains working on whatever. But when you're outside, you're not going to not stop and see a kingfisher. And you also have to manage the fact that that there are other people in the park. So, I've had instances where we found ourselves walking at the same pace as somebody who's just in front or just behind us.
Right.
And you have to kind of think, okay, well, they can totally hear everything we're saying, so we need to manage that. So we either have to kind of, and I said to clients, okay, should we just pause here a moment and let them go past? Because so there's also the boundary of confidentiality, that you don't want to be, actually quite often I've seen other runners that I know as well, and you think, luckily most of the people that I know well enough to stop and have a chat with know that if they see me with somebody they don't know, that it may be a client. So, I'm not being rude, but I'm not going to stop and say hi.
And it's looked like it's developed really well recently, isn't it? Even with the COVID, maybe because of COVID.
I think it partly is because of COVID, because I think, that's the other thing, that regular therapy, like other therapists that I'm, in my network, they're doing everything on Zoom, because you can't be in a small room face to face with somebody, So I don't know any other therapists that are seeing clients face to face. So that's another kind of great advantage to it, that I can carry on seeing my clients and having that human contact with them, not actual contact, obviously, ever.
Because you also obviously coach running clubs.
Yes. Yeah.
That which was on and then is off again.
Yeah.
So this is so it doesn't have to be somebody who wants to run with you then for these sessions. It can be, it sounds like the majority of them are walking.
Yeah.
So what I've recently seen then is that you're doing a kind of, you want to be able to help more people.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that, the post that you put up recently.
Yeah, so that's so there's a guy called William Pullen, who is an author and therapist. He works in London, and he does his thing is called dynamic run DRT, dynamic running therapy, and he does all of his therapy sessions, or I think maybe not all of them, but he does a lot of his sessions whilst running. And he also does a lot of stuff about mindfulness in running. So I'm trying to remember the title of his book. Anyway, if you look him up, William Pullen, it's a very good book.
Run for Your Life, is it? Something like that?
Yes, that's it. Yeah. So that's about mindfulness in running.
Yeah.
He he contacted me recently and said that he's trying to put together an initiative where people who work in mental health and runners basically just reach out to that. It's an Instagram thing, and it's just to reach out to your network and just say, offer a, just a one-off walk and talk. And just, if somebody's really struggling, and it's not a therapy session, it's just a chat. Right. So it's just about making that human contact with people. Yeah. So, if somebody felt like they were really struggling and they just wanted to reach out to someone and just have a bit of a natter. If they were in Oxford, obviously I would meet them one-to-one, and, it would be socially distanced, and we could actually meet and have a walk and a chat, or on the phone. So, yeah, I think it's just, as he put it, that we're actually, there is a mental health crisis at the moment with the pandemic. And I think the sort of mental health effects that this pandemic is having have not necessarily been looked into. I mean, I wonder, sorry, this is a slight tangent, but I do wonder, if there's going to be research done in the future, what it did to people not being able, people that live alone, not having any human touch for however long this has been going on for, like, however long it will go on for, say a year, not actually kind of, like it's just awful. Think about sort of people in, older people in care homes and stuff that, wouldn't have had a hug for a year. It just absolutely breaks my heart. Or what it will do to, our kids, that they can't hug their grandparents and that kind of thing. So
I think you're right. I think unfortunately it's the looking backwards will tell. Well, we all know the importance of that. The community people want to be part of. Yeah. So when we're forced to. Yeah. Doors,
and just things like, for some people, they're only, I know for a lot of us runners, like, I don't know about you, but outside of my social life with my kids and really old friends, my main social life is the running club. And not being able to meet in groups. I mean, we can all still meet each other one-to-one, which is a absolute godsend, I think, that you can sort of meet one other friend at this time around. But not being able to go for those, I really miss those big group runs, where we'd all kind of mix up and chat with each other, didn't we? And it was, and I don't know, not having events has been really.
It kind of robs you of the purpose, doesn't it?
It does.
That's why we run, but we also like to train. And I know there's been a lot of virtual events people have trained for. It's just having that bit of structure, that purpose to your event. And obviously, being runners, it's the coffee and cake afterwards.
It sure is.
Okay, so if somebody wants to kind of find you, get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Okay, so they can just, if you just Google, my website is Oxford Wellness Running. And there'll be a link to my email is also Oxford Wellness Running at Gmail. So they can contact me there.
Yeah. And how about social media? Where you
are? On Instagram, I'm mbot_runs. So that's Instagram's my main obsession. Obviously, I don't take actual photographs of my clients because that would be completely unethical. But see quite a lot of pictures of squirrels and selfies and ducks.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks, Emma. That's great. Thank you very much for your time, and best of luck with that.
Thank you. All right.